So we're about to reopen the OMG after lining the entire bottom with iron spikes. We've only just started to fill it. The first layer is still filling in, but I don't have any serious building destroyers out there right now that I'm aware of anyway. So we're going to open up for business. I have managed to build up 476 enemies in the meanwhile, and my FPS has been hovering in the 10 to 15 range. Let's just say that's not the happiest place for me to be. In the meanwhile, I've also finally figured out this bathtub. For those curious, I've got a door, a 0 to 1 pressure plate for water here to allow access of the water in. Over here I have a 2 through 7 pressure plate that opens, a 2 through 7 pressure plate here that opens the door here to let the water out. In general, we seem to be doing all right, but I had screwed up trying to do a plug up here to create some mist. I had thought, spreading it out across 10 squares would kind of, let it mist without flooding the place. It doesn't. So I had to cork that up. That was an adventure and a half. But we have just set the OMG to open. Our bridge just came down here, so we are open for business again. Our minecart is slowly but surely staggering through. We have just gone to a 7 FPS. We are down to a turn-based game. But hopefully with these guys passing in, I will be able to recover some of this. That is a troll. Let's hope he doesn't go straight for the rollers. We'll see where he goes. Well, of course he's going to sneak onto the tracks. Okay, good. So we'll get an idea of exactly how long it takes them, how far down they can get in between paths. This is kind of like watching my game in slow-mo. So you can make it almost down to the doorway before the minecart gets around again. And thwack. Have a nice swim. And he's gone. So we're going to have to let that run a while. I won't subject you to watching the FPS attempt to do this, but I figured that you guys would be curious to see what was going on. Additionally, one of the things I did was, if you remember, I have a flyer blocker wall here. I extended that all the way up to where I was doing the drops before, so that I stopped getting bits and pieces of corpses lying on top of that wall up above it. So hopefully we can stop from having random hands and things like that just hanging out randomly, so I don't have to do strange and interesting things to try and get them out again. Other than that, let's get that rolling. Up here on the surface, we've begun clearing out the surface. We've gotten a decent amount in. We certainly have gotten a ton of meltables done. Down here, this little area is all of the non-masterwork metal goods that I want to melt down. Everything besides bolts, basically, that aren't masterwork. So they get thrown in there, and every now and then I go by and hit it with a bulk melt. So, hopefully, after this runs for a bit, hopefully we'll be able to get some FPS back, and this game will get moving again. Well, we're already back up to 10, so bring you guys back in a bit. Just for awareness, I just did a clean map. I have the bathtub working and things like that. It was decontaminating everybody. But I got an FPS boost of about 7 frames per second by cleaning off all the contaminants on the map. So, while the contamination was causing issues here and there, particularly on items and things like that, with the bathtub cleaning off everybody, I wasn't too worried about it really being a cheat in this land. Because eventually we're going to clean everything. But I can't get the dwarves to go to a place and clean it. So, with that not available for an FPS assist, I decided I was just going to use the DF hack. So shoot me if you think I just cheated. Oh, sorry. Well, now this is disconcerting. Not entirely sure how. But I've got a goblin mutilated corpse on my stairway near the power supply for the main rollers. And he's on fire, obviously. He must have came in through the magma somehow, and I'm just not sure how. I think I could think of it somehow or another he got blown through down here because it wasn't a full 7-7. But now he's up by the power system. And... okay, he hasn't taken out my axle. Thankfully it's not on this level. But in theory, if he comes up, he'll walk past the axle, possibly light it on fire. Then come up into the fort, lighting that axle on fire, down through this way. I have to keep an eye on him. Once we get the pit filled, and I'm not running mine carts through this area, I'll dispatch a team to go remove him. So, random interlude, while we're still filling up the OMG here. Something I forgot to show you. I apparently have trees growing on my tracks now. I'm not entirely sure why. This may be throwing off the system a bit. But yeah, I have young bloodthorn, shrubs. We're gonna have to get back in there, and I think we carved that. Whoops. It's been about 2 years since you last visited. We have built out the northeastern control point. We started emptying it out. We emptied out the southern one already. The OMG's been running for that year and a half. We're down to about 110 targets out there. A bunch of them are clumped up here around the entryway, right here. And we're just still cruising through. What we've been doing is, with our crossbowmen, we've kind of been peppering the undead, and we're getting them to move again. And slowly but surely, I'm building out the skeleton for the bridges, so that we can start sealing off this section over here on the, I want to say the Midwest area. So we're just waiting on that to finish out, and right now all of my idlers, okay, somebody again up construction for me. Right now all my idlers are basically working on clearing out this section. My FPS has been a little wobbly. I want to say I'm running somewhere between 15 and 25 depending on where I'm looking at any one time. Nothing else in particular in the fort of significant note. We've been building up some of our steel supplies. The bathtub is working. One of the things I had to do with the bathtub at one point was drop the floodgate and then reopen it because for some reason the pressure plate got stuck during a game start. But other than that, it's working fine. As you can see, it's trapping all the contaminants and whatnot. And that pretty much covers it. So we're still trucking along. We're still building out our surface. Haven't had any significant issues. One thing of note, I've dropped 2 more locations where we drop down for wells. And I've hooked them up to the main chamber over here. Now you'll notice I put doors in as well. That's so I can lock them off eventually and just completely seal off the entire the entire process. One of the other things I did was I recently built out a siege workshop, and I've got a guy just sitting there playing with building catapult parts for now, while I wait for him to be able to make masterworks. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it yet. I was thinking about building out some catapults and having some fun, seeing if I couldn't get these guys to move around. But the problem is if I carve these walls out, I create ramps that bring them right up onto the bridge, and that just won't end well. So I need to figure out how I'm going to get those catapults in place if I'm going to do that. But other than that, just still trucking along. There's one other thing I wanted to note about our wells underground here. While they are connected to our system, I've high-trafficked the path back and forth, and one of the other things I did was, as we get done with using different wells, I forbid them. On top of that, I'm also creating a quantum storage pile for buckets, so that the buckets stay near the wells and I can use them easily. Now, I am a little low on buckets here, so I'm going to go figure out what's going on there. Oh, here we go. There's my giant bucket list. Now, one of the things I had done, if you remember, I had a bunch of buckets with ice in them on the surface. I had created a specific dump pile near the bucket drop, and I went onto the surface and I dumped all of those buckets after making sure all of my other dump sites were turned off. They got dumped inside, and the ice melted down to water again, I want to say after about 2 or 3 weeks. So we were able to recover a bunch of our buckets that were on the surface. So in my final entry for this episode of FurnaceClans, we've completed the walls. It took about another 3 years. We eventually herded down all of the undead, but as you can see, we've sealed off most of the sides. We've left this little northwest corner as accessible to caravans and sieges and things of that nature. A caravan just showed up, and actually the human diplomat just popped in to say hello. We don't have a trade depot up anymore. I took that apart, but we'll get back to that. Now, if we zoom in, a little too much there, but as you can see, my dwarves are slowly but surely working on cleaning up the area. My magma furnaces are working full-time to melt down all the metal goods. And up here, we've begun the beginnings of our run to our new trade depot, which is going to be an airlock trade depot. So we're running it up here. This is one level under surface. Once everything is set up and I've got my airlocks and everything in place and I've got bridges on both sides so I can airlock caravans in, I'll dig out the rampways up here and we'll be able to get in and out right out in here, and we'll clean this area out as well. One of the other things I'm doing is I'm putting in a small stairway with a legendary marble floor hatch, which actually I want to lock for now. But that's just to make sure that I can't get beasties coming in where I'm not paying attention. But I do want to have some form of access point to that area outside in case I desire it. But we've got plenty of cleanup work to do in here. We'll be doing that for a while, doing all the dumps and everything to clean things up. I do seem to be getting some of my FPS back as we move. The more stuff we clean up, the more I'll be able to recover, so that's helpful. And that should pretty much cover it. So, as you can see, I've pretty much cleared out almost all of our enemy list. We've got some human merchants kicking around in the diplomat. He's trying to talk to the Duchess, but there's almost no chance he's going to be able to. We have the 2 undead here. One is our suicide miner, which got a sickle a long time ago, and the Raven Skeleton, which keeps transients from crossing the map because he's stuck in the OMG torpedo system. We have a bunch of uninvited guests, which are basically forgotten beasts. Eventually we're going to need to clean them out, but they're all pretty much stuck down on Cavern 1 behind a couple of trees, jammed up between the wall and the trees right on the edge of the map. Haven't figured out how to get them out. And as was mentioned, yes, I do have flesh balls. They're down here on Cavern 3. And in case anybody's interested in a flesh ball, they're a large ball of skin. They absorb dead matter. So it's not really an overly dangerous little critter there. But other than that, that pretty much covers it for this episode of FurnaceClans. See you again for the next episode. Thanks for watching.